Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. All right, so my listeners out there, who has ever thought of writing a book, but maybe you got stuck wondering what comes next? Fear, self-doubt, not knowing how to turn your story into impact. And this happens, I think, to a lot of us. And what's going to be fun today is that my guest is great at this. And so we're going to have a fun conversation. I'm so excited to chat with him. It's the first time we're meeting is today on this episode. But before I bring him on here, I do want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine.
All right. And with that, I do want to make a mention to head on over to startergirlz.com. I tell you this every single week. Why do I say that? One, because if you've missed an episode, it's a great place to catch up on one. It's also a great place to sign up for our community newsletter, and then you can stay in the know and you'll never miss an episode. And lastly, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, creator, maybe you're in the thick of it. I don't know where you're at right now, and you want to learn what your number one success block is that may be hindering your success. Well, guess what? I've got you covered. There's a 2-minute quiz you can take over there, and it will help you identify one of 6 blocks that may be keeping you stuck right now and keeping you from writing that book. And so be sure to head on over to startergirlz.com. And as I always say, do your thing. All right. Well, it's time to get our guest on the show today. And so my guest today, Timothy Flemming Jr., he has spent over a decade helping hundreds of authors publish their books and turn them into coaching programs, digital offers, and thriving businesses. As the founder of the Kingdom Launchpad, Timothy equips Christian and self-help authors to overcome mindset blocks and strategic hurdles so they can step fully into their calling and make a lasting impact. So, Timothy, welcome to the show. We are so glad to have you here today.
Awesome. I'm so excited about being here.
This is going to be so much fun. And as I'm talking, it's so funny. And so the listeners don't know all the things we have to go through when we do these podcasts. But every now and then I let them in on a little something. And so it's so funny because I was telling, you, Timothy, that I have my notes sitting over here. So I had my little note like covering the screen and I'm like, dang it, I can't see his face. Like I'm having a hard time here. So I had to like move it over so I could see you again. But my bio was like stretching out. And I'm like, I need the full width here. So the things we go through to make all this fabulous content, right?
Awesome.
So fun stuff. All right, Timothy. So we're going to talk about you today, like what you're doing, what you've got going on, because I'm interested to know kind of some of your strategies and how you've helped your, these authors and in your world. And so your journey, I mean, it spans ministry, publishing, entrepreneurship. I want to know how did this evolve? Like what led you to wanting to help authors do this and step into their calling?
Awesome. So I've been working with authors, started really in 2010, to be honest with you. That's when I launched my business, T&J Publishers, book publishing. And, I've been doing this since 2010, but I've always been a writer. I've always loved writing. I've been writing since as old as I can remember. I remember being a little kid in my dad's office, at home, just sitting at the typewriter. A lot of people remember what those are, sitting at the typewriter, just thinking to myself, I need to write something. I don't even know what to write. I just need to write something. So writing has always been in me. It's always been this creative expression, something that has helped me therapeutically and in other ways. And I at some point just decided I would take this gift of mine and use it to help other people, help them share their stories, help them to connect with other people, make an impact in the lives of other people. And that's when I launched my business in 2010, TNJ Publishers, to just help other people who had interesting stories, books that they needed to get out and share with the world. And I just launched my business so that I could help them launch their voices. And it just began to grow and take on a life of its own from there. And one of the things that I discovered also in the process of helping people to write and publish their books is that many of these people, they had readers who had deeper needs. So people would read the books and say, okay, the book was great. What's next? And then we had to kind of take it to the next level and say, okay, well, let's start creating some other products, courses, online courses and things like that, to give people a deeper experience. So it just kind of evolved from that one need of helping individuals to articulate their stories, put it in book form, and then reach the people that they are called to reach. And it just became a beautiful thing from there.
Got you. Well, I think it's interesting too that, like you said, that you always like to write and stuff, because I think that, that's such a good thing, by the way, because I think so often we don't take time to do that. And it makes me think about, like when we were in school. So back up about the typewriters. I actually took a typewriting class in high school. We did typewriters. I did my papers on like memory writer typewriters. That's how before we had computers and stuff to do all that cool, stuff that we had. But I think it's so neat that you talk about this writing, because it makes me think of, when we were in school, how the teacher would, they would always have us write like journal prompts and stuff. And we probably thought at that time those were so stupid. Like I hated doing that. But now I know, in the world that we live in, think about that every day. Like when we're doing social media, we're doing journal prompts like every day, right? Like we're thinking about like, hey, what happened this morning? I'm gonna do a post about that. That's a journal prompt. And so I think this is so interesting, that for you, it's a good thing, because you actually enjoy doing this stuff, and you've been able to turn this into a passion and make money at the passion, right? And so I think that's an awesome thing. But I think there's so many great things even with that, just allowing to foster that creativity. And there's so much that comes from being able to tap into that creative zone. And so good for you for being able to really hone in on that and find, what that gift is that you have, and then be able to transfer that into a career.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. Like I say, it's really a passion of just a labor of love, passion of
Yeah.
mine. If you're not passionate about it, you're not going
Right.
to really put all your heart into it. So it's definitely something
Yeah.
that was birthed out of passion.
Yeah. And so with you being in ministry, are you finding that a lot of your writers are coming from that world? They're writing a lot of, is it, ministry type work, do you feel like, for them?
Oh yeah. So actually, the majority of my clients that I work with, or do a lot of ghostwriting as well. The majority of my clients were pastors. There were several life coaches as well, and entrepreneurs. But many of them come out of the ministry arena as pastors, leaders in ministry, and like I say, they have some incredible testimonies from traumatic experiences and things that they've gone through. And they just wanted to share these things and kind of allow people to get a deeper understanding of who they are. You may see the person standing in the pulpit,
Right.
but you don't know about their struggles, the things that they've wrestled with, and the things that they continue to wrestle with. Just because a person is in ministry doesn't mean they are not human. They don't have
Right.
challenges and things of that
Right.
nature. So writing a book is a great way to connect with people on a deeper level. But yeah, most of my clients have been pastors and ministry
Mm.
leaders. I'll tell you, my first client who I wrote with, and by the way, she never really paid her invoice, uh, but that's my wife. I'm just joking. I love to say that. Some people are
She's
like,
paying it
really?
for me after.
No, I did not invoice
Right.
my wife. No, I did. I did not want to be in the doghouse. But
That's
my
so
wife,
funny.
was, she both of us are in ministry, and she has an incredible book out just teaching people how to discover their purpose, purpose
Yeah.
seekers. And after helping her put her book out, one of her ministry friends contacted and said, "Hey, look, I want you to do for me what you did for your wife." And then helped that person, and she was a pastor, and then she referred me to another. So the funny thing is, most of my clients, I never really, especially in the beginning stage, did any real marketing. It was all just word of
Yeah.
mouth.
Right.
But one person would always refer me to another person or refer people to me. And most of these people were ministers. They were pastors, ministry leaders. And that's a very unique area
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to just expertise.
Yeah, and I can see, like when you're talking about life coaches and all that too, because I think, well, I'm certified in life coaching as well, but I got like a lot of different certifications. But it's funny because I feel like there's kind of ministry in that a lot of
Mhm.
times. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that stuff, it all really sort of overlaps. You take
Mhm.
it all the way from the therapy spectrum all the way to, what you're doing ministry. I mean, it really all kind of overlaps as you work through. And so I'm sure you've heard a lot of really amazing stories. And I will say, as an author, like when I wrote my book, it was, for me, it was, I don't even know if I wanted, maybe I wanted people to get it, but I think for me it was sort of a way for me to document what I had gone through, to put it into words, because at the time, here it is, by the way, it happens to be sitting on my desk. um when I wrote it at the time, there was a lot different emotion than now that I have for it. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like when I wrote it at that time, it was hard. I guess
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
flies through there. And then when I came back, and I look at it now, I feel like it's sort of like childbirth.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you ask somebody like, right, a woman, right, at the time she's having childbirth, if she wants to know, she's probably going to be like, hell no. Give her a little time. Then she's like, okay, we'll rethink that conversation, right? That's how I felt about this book. Is like when I wrote it, it was like awful because it was such a painful
Mhm.
experience
Yeah.
for me because I was going through all of the thick of it. But now I can look at it and go, okay, well, that was a really tough
Mhm.
season that I went through, but it helped me it became the catalyst for where I am in today and the work that I do. And basically, and maybe in some ways it's a type of ministry that I do, but the work that I do now really stems from the hardship that came in that book that I was writing. But it was really about, for me, it was really just a place for me to put that down so that I could go back. Cause now people ask me and I'm like, they'll read it and they'll go, man, you went through some hard stuff, because I don't
Mhm.
really talk about it as much now. People are like, okay. And then when they hear it, they go, wow, like they're like shocked because it's a very different emotion now. So for me, it was totally a place to just put it, talk about it, get it up, and really release it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the two really are the same with ministry, life coaching. You're
Yeah.
dealing with the core, you're dealing with the core person.
Yeah.
You're going down to the heart of the matter. You're dealing with
Hmm.
a person's heart, their self-image, self-concept,
Right.
helping them to change things about themselves. Um, so much of what the Bible teaches, we do find in the coaching field with
Yes.
life coaching,
Yeah.
so many similarities. For example, I was actually doing a Bible study not too long ago, and the core message in that particular Bible study was all about developing the right self image. For
Yeah.
example, if you have the wrong self image, your self image imposes limitations on you that prevent you
Right.
from reaching your goals. And we find this all throughout the Bible.
Yeah.
That as a person, as a man thinketh in his heart, so was he. You know,
Yep. Yep.
so it's so much that is interconnected, and it's about learning how to deal with the individual, the core individual, to find out what their needs are, what their limitations are, how they
Right.
perceive themselves. So you're exactly correct that life
Yeah.
coaching, ministry, it all really works together in the same vein.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because just to like kind of drive in that point you're talking right there about the self-image thing, that can wreak havoc in a lot of areas of life. And when that is corrupted and not solid, and it's I think a continual process, obviously, right? But
Yes.
when
Totally.
that is weak, It's really, it can have a lot of it can have devastating effects. It can really, and one of the things, I don't want to get into this, I really want to talk about your stuff, but
Yeah.
when I was going through this, I will say this, that I talk about this all the time. I've said it in several episodes. I had a holistic practitioner. I say holistic. He was more into like oils and herbs and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I was kind of new to this. So I was sort of at the crossroad where I was still thinking some of this stuff was kind of weird. I'm like all over all of that stuff. But at this point I was kind of new to all this. And I remember he asked me, I did talk about this book. He said something to the effect of like, what were you doing at the time of the onset of this particular crisis at that point that I was going through? At this time it was a medical condition.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, like I've said this in this episode many times, when he asked me that, at that time, I was like sort of taken back. I was kind of pissed off, to be honest with you, because I was victim. And I was thinking, how dare you ask me this question? This was inflicted upon me.
Mm.
And I was mad. And I will tell you, this is 2012. Now we're in 2025 now. Okay. So I've grown a lot and I've worked on me and all that. But I will tell you, the reason I'm telling you this is because at that time, I was broken. There was a lot going on in my life. And a lot of that was internal stuff
Yeah.
that I discovered through this journey that was actually contributing to the things that were going on in my world that were unfavorable. And so I say all that to say, go back to that
Mhm.
self-image thing that you're talking about. As I worked on healing me, the core, worked on healing that and my worth. And I talk, really big on this whole confidence and worth thing being two different things, because
Mm.
skills set does not
Oh
equate
yeah.
worth set, right? Like you
Yeah.
can have a lot of skill and talent,
Oh
but you
yeah.
still don't like yourself, you got problems. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
I had the skills. I'm a quick learner, talented, pick up things very quickly, but the worth part was a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Work on that. When I
Um,
started really working on that part of that, a lot of this stuff really shifted. And so
mm.
that's why I tell you, I can now go back and look at this with the fresh set of eyes. It doesn't have the same emotional toll on me that it did at that time. And so I want to say, yes, commend you on that, because
Mm.
that is so important. It's everything. I feel like it's just everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
image, how you feel about yourself. And it just really makes a difference in the whole and how you show up every day.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. Definitely.
You're speaking it every day, right? Like you're
Oh yeah.
speaking it.
Oh
I
yeah.
love it. I love it.
Awesome.
So real quick before I move on about the books, I want to know how you got into ministry. Back me up on that part really quick. Is this in family or did you just kind of evolve into this?
Okay, so my dad, he's a pastor.
Okay.
So I grew up in it. I'm a PK. So
Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
well, I was the one that
You
was
were just, it was
bad,
already in the blood.
the bad in the beginning, always getting in trouble and, trying to avoid, the ministry and
Right.
calling. So I went into sports and just kind of focused my attention on that. But I really felt the call of God, and I just said yes. Stop
Gotcha.
running from the thing that I know God is calling me to.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of what you just talked about, that internal work. A
Yeah.
lot of that needed to be dealt with. I still had a lot of misconceptions about ministry, growing
Sure.
up, and just the pressure of you have to please so many people. You have to appeal to this group and that group, and you have to
Right.
put out so many fires. And growing up, seeing all of those things, I said, nope,
You're like, no.
this is not for me. I would just live my life and just do something else. But
Yeah.
I finally just surrendered, and it's been a journey because I've been in ministry now for 30 years.
Wow.
I started when I was 16 years old, 16, back in 1995,
Sure.
and from there until now, it's been a journey. And I'll say
Yeah.
this, especially for anyone that's listening, healing is emotional, psychological healing. It's a journey that you get on. You may be good at doing something, like you just said a moment ago. You're good when it comes to your skill set, but when it comes to the other aspects, your feeling of self-worth, well, if you
Right.
don't work on those things, then they will have a profound effect on anything that you do. And that was something that I had to work on within myself. ministering, but I felt like an imposter many times.
Oh,
I felt
yeah.
like I was not worthy of the task
Right.
or worthy of the calling. And sometimes people will make you feel like that if you make mistakes. But that was something that I had to develop over a period of time. And now I'm in a much better place, where I'm not just talking about the peace of God, but actually experiencing the peace of God in my life. But it was a journey of healing that I had to go on in order to
Yeah.
get to that place.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I had a guy on here a few episodes back. I don't know if you caught it, Ryan Godfrey's, and he's actually a psychologist at Cal State Fullerton. So in the business department. And he, just to put what you're saying, like a different spin on it, he introduced this concept of being versus doing. We spend a lot of time in our lives doing things that we think are going to make us feel better, whatever, when we really should be focusing on our being, because our being goes with us everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And so what I loved about this is he just said the same thing you said, the same thing I said, but now coined it with terms over here for those people who really need like a visual, like a picture of this, whereas you and I are kind of like, we're speaking from that feeling. Like, I totally get what you're saying. And that's the way I speak about it. But it was really refreshing to hear him say it kind of in a little bit different language, this being versus doing and vertical versus horizontal growth that we do, and when you think about it, we spend a lot of time, chasing success
Yeah.
to master skill sets and things. And then we realize at some point, I think, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at now in my life, is that you really start valuing your time over your
Right.
money or whatever, or your money,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like to you. And I'm
Mhm.
saying that to say, not to say we don't need money, but I also joke and say, if something doesn't align with my priorities, I don't really care how much money it is. I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because we start to value ourselves more and how we show up in our place in the world. And it's a journey. It's not, and I love that you said about the imposter, because I think we all experience that too. And even now, sometimes I still at my age have moments where I go, okay, I don't really feel like I'm living what I'm telling my people that we should be doing, But here's the
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Authenticity is great, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Vulnerability and authenticity is great because it shows you're human.
Yeah, that is very profound what you just said, because vulnerability, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It
Right.
means that you're open and that you're honest. Actually, that is a hidden strength, to be vulnerable. And one of the things that a lot of people tend to do, and I think this is something that really traps us, is we look at ourselves, but we do so with judgmental eyes rather than
Yeah.
compassion. So
Right.
one of the things that I've learned how to do is, when I do make certain mistakes, and I still do, oh, I'm a man of God, I'm a minister, I've been in ministry for 30 years. I've been doing this for, so many years, and I'm supposed to be, and some people will
Right.
hold these high expectations. And if you're someone that deals with this,
Yeah.
you're someone that wrestles with this, I've learned how to just, number one, relax.
Yeah.
Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Don't hold yourself to a level that you don't hold others to. If you're
Right.
willing to give compassion to other people, but you're not willing to give that same compassion to yourself, that's something that you need to really question. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned to do is, rather than make a mistake and then come at myself with, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe
Yeah.
it. I can't believe it. Now I'll make the same mistake and say, okay, let me question, why did Tim make that mistake?
What'd you do
Uh,
that for?
yeah, what were the triggers?
Right.
Why are you still triggered? What is the belief system that is
Yeah.
causing that trigger to emerge? So now I ask questions rather than make judgments, and that makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. Curiosity. I love it.
Mhm.
That is a common theme. I feel like the last probably 3 or 4 episodes, that's been a big thing, is this question, curiosity, leading with curiosity, because it really does. It takes away the judgment and the
Yeah.
bias, right? It allows you to come in with an open mind and be like, let me probe on this,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yeah.
And I say all that to say to you that, yes, I do that too. I'm very much like, why am I doing that today? Why are we acting? Because I think the more you grow, Timothy, too, I think you've learned too, where you go, I don't like my behavior right now, because that's what I'll do to myself. Like I had an issue the other day with somebody, and we had a little bit of I say words. I felt like I got heated, and then what I did is I said, you know what, I'm going to go now. I need to get my things done. But here's the interesting thing: when I got done, I actually felt bad. I felt bad about the fact that I allowed two things, that I had allowed
Yeah. Yeah.
someone to rile me that way. I allowed, but also that and how I responded to that. And so I did. I actually sent the person a text message and said, "I'm sorry that I snapped at you." And I just said, be kind to yourself or whatever. I didn't want to do any, but this is why I did it. I just said, "I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
snapped at you." Left it alone.
Mm.
It was a mess. I don't want to get into who's, whatever. But the point is that I think the more as we grow, a couple things that we recognize, one, that we contribute to, that we play a role in everything, but also that we know ourselves and we know our limitations, and we know when we're also not acting favorably. And I think that growth comes when two
Yeah.
things, when we can recognize that, we can also
Mhm.
apologize and say, I didn't act appropriately, or, you know, that comes from the curiosity. That comes from asking questions and saying, how could I have shown up better? What could I have done differently? Right? It's the
Mhm.
awareness.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That awareness, that's the catalyst for change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff, Timothy. You're doing great stuff. I'd love to know, like, with your authors, like, what are some of the biggest, like, challenges? So obviously we talk about, I'm guessing it's probably universal. I had a mentor once that said, we always, something about that which we think most personal is universal. Like, we all think we
Yeah.
have these universal things, but at the core, get to the core, they're really kind of the all same things. We all
Uh-huh.
have, there's like 6 human needs. We know what they are, right? And usually it's one of those not being met, but we all have these little nuanced things. But I am curious to know, like, what are you finding with your authors? Like, is it the writing the book? Is it once they write it, getting it out? Like, what's that look like?
Okay, yeah, and that's a great question. So the first challenge that I've experienced with a lot of authors is just the whole storytelling aspect in and of itself. That many of them have a great story to tell, but they don't know how to tell the story,
Mm,
especially in a very engaging way.
yeah.
As we know as writers, there are certain rules when it comes to storytelling that causes any story to become successful or connect with readers. And so that's where I come in, just to kind of help with that storytelling aspect. One of my favorite quotes is, everyone has a story to tell, but learn how to tell yours the right way. And that's after experiencing, or years of experience working with so many clients, that they have these incredible stories, but they just don't know how to convey the message,
Yeah.
how to articulate what they're feeling, how to put the story in words that really captivate readers. And another one of the big challenges that I've also seen is that a lot of people are very hesitant to share those embarrassing or
Yeah. That's that
painful
vulnerability
moments.
thing.
They like, I don't know how many times I've dealt with this.
Yes.
Him, I do not want to put that in the book. And I'm like, this story, what you're trying to hide, is actually the key to the breakthrough for your readers.
Yes.
This is the thing
Yes.
that's going to connect with them. If I could share a quick story about this,
Yes. Tell us.
again, when I was working with my wife, when she came to me about helping her to put her first book together, um, I sat down with her the same as I do with any ghostwriting client. I just sat down with her, said, okay, just share with me your story, share with me all your talking points, everything you want to go in the book. And so we just engaged in dialogue. And as we were talking, she was sharing one incident, and I said, that's it. We need to put that in the book. And she was adamant, no, you're not putting that in the book. I'm not telling that story. I'm not putting up. And we're going back and forth. And I'm like, look, you have to put this in the book, because I know you want to hide this incident, but this is going to grab people's attention and wheel them in. And
Yeah.
that's one of the key components in storytelling. You need to lead with a hook, something that will captivate people and cause them to want to turn to the next page. And I'll share with you what the story. Finally, I won over. Eventually I won over, and she was like, "Okay, go ahead and put it in the book." And I said, "Look, I know how to dress it up so that it doesn't come across as embarrassing or what have you,
Sure.
but it still conveys the message." And so we started with that story. And that story, this was the beginning of the book. This is basically the way that we started chapter number 1. The apartment, it reeked of weed, the smell of weed, smoke. There were at least 10 thugs
You gave me
downstairs,
chills just
all of
listening to
them
it.
carrying guns. And
Yeah.
outside, there was a whole group of thugs still standing around in the Bowen home apartment complex where me and my friend were trapped, and we didn't know if we could get out. And then finally, one of the guys entered into the room where I was. And if you want to hear the rest of the story,
You
you
give
have
me
to get the
chills
book.
just listening to it. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So,
And this is,
so I said, look, we're going to lead with this story of you and your
yes.
friend being kidnapped. And if people want to know what happened, then yeah, they have to get the book, read the rest of the book, and find out how you were able to escape that situation and
Yes.
how that factored into you discovering your purpose, who God called you to
Yeah.
be.
Thank you for sharing that. You know why? Okay, 2 things. I'm gonna say because you just gave me chills reading that because I would be like, I got to flip the page, so I got to get through that. I love this, but also you said something so powerful in this. I mean, this whole episode so far has been amazing, but just the fact that you said this leading with the hook because this is so important. I think in social media, video clipping, all these things because you coming in as an outside viewer and saying this because I think we get so into our things, right? We know our story. We think we know what's important, what the
Right.
part is we need to put because we want to share that part. But sometimes having that person come in from the outside in and going, okay, these are the highlights. These are the things that are going to actually grab people are important. But I also like that you just said that word, the hook in here, because we did a lot of touchy feely stuff in this whole thing. And you put something out there. There's actually a pay attention moment here for somebody right now. If they're writing a book, you need to be leading with that main story, whatever that pivotal moment or whatever that is. It's like the climax, whatever that is in that story. That's what we need to be leading with in the beginning, and I'm going through this right now. It's so funny because I have somebody helping me with my like repurposing my content right now. And it's fun because, we got these applications where I can put the video in there and it'll give me some, but he's actually creating these like I don't know, you can go on my site now, look at them because they're pretty good. He's creating these like cinema type stories from my content, but it's interesting because he'll give me the scripts and he's like, this one will be for this reason. And they're just highlights, basically like clips where people are going to go, like we let the Cal State guy, I think he opened with one that said, and I got fired. And I never thought I'd be something like that. And so then you're like, okay, this is a Cal State professor. Like, what's the story behind this? He got fired from his job. If you know the story, he was basically in a position where he was exceeding the position. Basically, he was growing out of the position, and his boss finally basically said, "I'm letting you go. You need to go. Like, you need to go move on and find something else." But he's like, I'm this. Why am I being fired? I never saw myself doing this. And this whole train of events goes down now because he's married. And I think he had at least one. I don't know if he had more than one kid, So he's got a family he's responsible for and he's fired, So, and I think, I'm sitting here thinking about all these stories now that come on this show. And I'm like, yes, we had the one that I just put out this week. The guy retired. He was in like a petroleum engineer. I don't know. In the oil and gas, retired at 49.
Wow.
Retired at 49. Introvert, engineer. If you know, I'm married to an engineer, so you probably can figure out the type. Okay. He basically had to reinvent himself and he did a TEDx talk. And now he's a coach and he's telling me that, like he initially was going to help men and now he's getting women that are in transition, like coming out of divorce, life transition. But the whole thing was like when I was getting ready to title this, it was like, we retire at 49. Now what? Like that's that was like our caption. I'm like, the whole story is about reinvention. But
Yeah.
it's about this guy's journey that at 49, this was like a pivotal moment. He had to reinvent himself.
Mhm.
So I love that you said that, because I think that we get lost in the weeds of all of our stuff and lose that. We need that moment that's going to get the person hooked in so they want to finish with us, whether it's video, book, whatever it is.
Well, yeah, that
Right.
hook is, I would say the hook is probably the most important thing. Most people, when they are starting out in the writing process, one of the areas they really get stuck at is, how do I even start? Where
Yeah.
do I begin? And you really want to start with something that is going to breed or create curiosity in reader.
Yeah.
And that's just a very important tip. You want to lead with curiosity. There's a lot of neuroscience behind that,
Yeah.
open loops. The
Right.
brain you just can't stop or think about anything else, until you just, bring closure to that open loop. So that is a very strategic tactic to
Yeah.
use when it comes to putting together a book and especially sharing your story. And usually, what I tell my clients is the thing that you're most embarrassed about. Yeah, you may be embarrassed about it, but someone else needs to hear it.
Yeah.
It's the secret of somebody else's healing or breakthrough. And I'll share one more one more
You're fine.
short
Yeah,
story
absolutely.
about
You're
it.
fine. You're like me.
But
You probably got lots of stories.
a lot
We're
of
the
stories here.
storytellers. We have lots
Storyteller.
of.
So there was one pastor,
Yeah.
a pastor that I was working with, and she had a very fascinating testimony about how being in a particular denomination, very popular minister, being in a certain denomination, she encountered a lot of, I hate to say it, but a lot of sexual harassment and abuse at
Mm.
the hands of people that were
Oh,
higher
wow.
ups in that particular denomination. And she came to me with this engaging, interesting story about navigating the hurdles of ministry as a woman and
Yeah.
having to deal with sexual immorality coming
Mm.
from those that you look to as leaders
Yeah.
within the church. And she was, her issue was, well, I don't want to share that story because if I share that story, people know who I am. They're gonna
Right.
know who I'm talking about. It's gonna bring a lot of criticism and skepticism, and people are gonna start to look at certain people within the ministry differently. And
Yeah.
I stopped her and I said, "Well, I understand your hesitation about sharing your story. I understand, but didn't you tell me that God told you you have to write this book?" So number
Mm.
one, we're dealing with a conviction that's on the inside of you that
Yeah.
this is something that you have to do. But number two, I said, well, you may offend, let's just say you offend 100 people, 100 people who are upset about what you've written and bringing exposure to something that needs to come to light. But you may set free 100,000 people.
Right.
So you have to kind of weigh the two. Do I close my mouth and just conceal this experience and hide this aspect of my story so that I don't offend 100? Or do I share it so that I could set 100,000 free? And you have to
Mm.
kind of weigh the two. And that's something
Yeah.
that I really had to bring to her awareness, because those things that you're trying to hide, many times those are the things that resonate and connect with people more deeply than anything else.
Yeah. No, it's good that you say that. And I do think that is a hard story, by the way.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
can
yeah.
imagine, having I don't know, I never like to say I know how somebody feels about something, but I can only imagine being in that position, that being hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny that you say this too, because I had this conversation with, I'm like you, I have so many stories. And so as we're talking, it's like, I'm like, dude, man, I need to like take your episode and refer all these back people, because all these points we're talking about, these different people have talked about. But I had a guy on here a couple weeks ago and I just released he was in the education, and we were kind of talking about some of these similar things. And I was telling him how, like, just to talk about what you're talking about on a small scale. When I go to do social media, sometimes I'll have like I'm a storyteller. So I like to use, I'm like you, I find, and we know the science behind this, people remember stories. That's why certain movies do really well. And if you can get in, you certain types, you'll find the story behind them, and some of them are really profound.
Mhm.
People learn from stories. They don't learn from you
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
here telling them concepts over and over. I
Yeah.
mean, they
Yeah.
do, but they're going to
Yeah.
find experiences they remember. And so I find that storytelling is such a great way to get points across, right? So I
Mhm.
was telling him that, like I was creating at this particular time, I was trying to create a post about something, and I was wrestling with it because it's like every time I put something out, it's hard for me to just put a post out and be like, okay, today, everybody have a great day. Go be brave. I always have to have a story and a message
Mhm.
line. No matter
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on in my world, I got to have a storyline for it. Well, sometimes I get tired of telling the story. So, anyways, I
Mhm.
told him, I said,
Yeah.
I put this post up, and as soon as I get it up, I'm like, I'm gonna take it down. It's because there was a part of me in this story that I had to tell that made me extremely uncomfortable because it was I didn't remember what the story was now. See, it's over. It's already out there. But it was for me, felt like a very vulnerable moment because I was telling something that was going on in my world that I was having to address. And I
Mhm.
told him, I said, I almost took it down. I said, I was
Mhm.
going through this whole head thing. Like, I'm not going to put it up. And then I finally get it up, and then I'm like, I'm going to take it back down. And he's like, then he was telling us about the X part of the brain that like when we do that, then we tell ourselves, well, you're embarrassing yourself. Why put that up there? Because you're going to
Yeah.
embarrass yourself, right? It's
Mhm.
all that head stuff.
Yeah.
I left it up. I got done talking to him. I said, well, it's up now. I'm not taking it back down now because that's too much work. I got to go find it again, take it out. So I left it. I don't even know what it was about at this point. I
Mhm.
have no idea what the post even was.
Wow.
But it is the stuff we go through, right? And so I imagine, when you're dealing with these authors, you're getting that same thing. It's that whole like we got to put ourselves out there, then people are going
Mhm.
to know, right? And
Yeah.
I'm even sometimes like, we have stories going on all the time. Sometimes I don't share them right when I'm going in them. I wait till they get solved, and then I tell it,
Mhm.
because then I might feel a little better about. Then I'm like, okay, I had this hard thing happen. Now I can talk
Mhm.
about it because I solved it
Yeah.
or worked through it. But also, I think to your point, as we said in the very beginning, the more you get comfortable with yourself, you also recognize that's part of your journey. That's part of what got you to where you are today. It needed to be there so you can release it to the
Yeah.
world and be like, I can tell it now, you know?
Yeah. And that's you said something just a moment ago that was again very very incredible about how people remember stories. They don't remember just jargon and just talking and
Yeah.
talking points. No, they remember stories, and that it really alludes to again when we even go back to the Bible, for example.
Mhm.
Why is it that Jesus always used parables?
Right,
Every
right.
time he wanted to communicate a
Yeah.
very important message, he didn't just sit down and say, "Okay, thou needest to do
Today
this."
we're gonna
No,
learn
no.
this.
He would sit down and say to the equivalent of our vernacular,
Yeah.
he would say, "Once upon a time,
Right.
let me share a story with you about a woman that owned a house, or let me share a story with you about a man that owned a field." He always conveyed
Yeah.
very important revelations through story,
Yeah.
because our brains psychologically, like you just said, they remember stories more than anything else, and we see ourselves in those stories. When you create a character, this is a great way for people to connect with that character because they can see themselves in that character. They see their traits. They see when the character is dealing with fears or dealing with insecurities, that the mirror neurons are reflecting back to them. I see myself in that character, and that story gives them a guide map or a road map on how to navigate their own real life challenges and circumstances. So storytelling is one of the key components when it comes to creating a book, and it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. This works in
Yeah.
both genres. Just learning how to tell that story. And like you just said, even in those moments when you feel like, well, I don't know if I can really talk about this because I haven't come out of it all the
Right.
way, or I'm still wrestling with it. And those
Yeah.
moments of doubt that still pop up, that who am I to even talk about this? I'm still dealing with it. Well, that's their strength in even admitting that you're still
Mhm.
wrestling with something, because that place of vulnerability and awareness is the first step to changing anything. That's where most people lack is becoming aware of what the problem is. So you can't defeat a problem that you're not aware of. So I would dissuade people from taking the attitude that, well, I'm not qualified to write or to share my story because I'm not Superman or Superwoman. I'm not, beyond reproach. Well, no one is.
Exactly.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
one is.
exactly. Yeah, no, good. And thank you for sharing that because I agree. We wait for, I mean, I think it's in everything. We wait for everything to be right, like
Yeah.
before, and I think this is no different than anything. And really, I mean, we wait for the conditions. It's so funny. In Mary Kay, I used to make a joke. You're going to love this. I used to make a joke about a bush burning because I would say, like, I'm like, if you're waiting for a bush to burn, it's probably not going to happen. You just got to sometimes move. You just got to wait, like you just got to go and make the decision to go because we're looking for all these signs all the time. I do think that the more we become in alignment with us and who we are and all those things, I do think our intuition gets better and we do get better at recognizing when timing is right and when timing isn't. But we're still human. We're going to make mistakes. And I think that, the beauty of this conversation that we're having here is just, giving people permission to tell the story, do it right, tell the story, be vulnerable, and put yourself out there because somebody needs to connect with that message. And as we're talking about this, I love two things I'll say. I love John Maxwell. I think he's such a great storyteller. I learned about him when I was my years of Mary Kay's. I love all his books because I think he's such a great storyteller. In fact, I saw him live here in Dallas a couple years ago, and it was so funny. He was talking about all these different characters, but he was putting them in the Bible, these characters in today, like what they would look like if they were in today. And it was the funniest thing because you could relate to the characters. You could totally see it happening. So he's one. But as a business writer, Leon Sanny, he does 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. All his books are parables and they're good because you read them. All the messages are in there if you read the book, but they're all through these stories. And 5 Dysfunction of a Team talks about the character in the team that is actually very skilled, but they're kind of the cancer in the organization because their attitude is not right and how they think they're not replaceable, but they're really bringing the morale down in the organization because they're just not a great team player. And so anyways, but the whole point of that is it's all parable. It's all storytelling and you get the concept, but you love the story. And so I think you and I could talk all day long about stories because I know you got a lot. I have interviewed so many people. That's why I have so much fun with these because every time I go somewhere, somebody will tell me something. I'm like, yeah, there was this person on my podcast. I need to connect y'all. Or yeah, there was this story and yeah, this one and this. I have so many stories. It's crazy. I love it. It's great. I would love to know this from you about you, what you've learned. You've said so many things in here that I know these are already takeaways from you. So we don't need to reiterate, but I want to hear you say something, just what comes to mind here. What do you feel like you've learned about yourself through this process of building your business?
Wow. Where do I start?
Right? I just said like a loaded question.
That's a loaded question. How much time do I have? I'm just joking. But what I've learned about myself, number one, in building a business, and I'm so glad that you phrased the question that way, because building a business is a very unique thing. It requires you to tap into certain resources, sometimes that you didn't know that you had, to really go into a place and even deal with certain traumas and things that you didn't realize were still there. And so, in the process of building a business, I learned a lot of things about myself, particularly in the area of limiting beliefs. Beliefs that I didn't realize that I was operating with for many years, things that I didn't realize were actually roadblocks or holding things that were holding me back. And I'll give you another interesting story. In 2020, I found myself lying in a hospital bed, and I was getting ready to undergo surgery. And this was something that just seemed to come out of nowhere. It seemed to come out of nowhere, but it certainly blindsided me. But I discovered that a lot of this was as a result of certain beliefs that I had. I was working myself, or basically killing myself. I'll put it that way. I would say I was overperforming, undercharging, a lot of different things that I was dealing with. And, and it took me lying in a hospital bed under the surgery knife for me to come to the realization that I needed to do business different. But in order to do business different, I needed to change the way that I thought. There were
Right.
certain thought patterns, there were certain belief systems, there were certain limiting beliefs. One of the beliefs that I carried, and this is when I made this discovery about myself, that I was carrying this belief system, that I always kind of had this belief that I'm just not good enough. I'm just not good enough. Doesn't matter how well I perform or overperform, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
Perfectionism. I just have to do more in order to prove myself. I just don't feel like anything that I've done is worthy of recognition and praise. It's just never
Sure.
this feeling of
Yeah.
satisfaction, and that was something that would always ache at me, and just really drive a lot of how I did business, and that's what put me in a hospital with a
Mhm.
stress related illness.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about myself, but it came in the form of discovering key belief systems that were secretly sabotaging me behind the scenes. And that's when I started to not just focus on helping people to write and publish books, and not just focus on the strategies and the business aspect of things, but to now take a pivot and actually start to help people in the area of mindset, because I didn't understand it up until then just how powerful our beliefs are. So I would say
Yeah.
that's the greatest discovery that
Yeah.
business has taught me. You have to develop the right mindset, the right motivations, have the right belief
Mhm.
system. These things need to be at the core of everything that you do. And there was something that you said earlier, that anything that violates my principles and my values, I just say
Mhm.
no. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
more money is thrown my way. If it
Right.
violates who I am at the core, then it's going to create
Yes.
conflict inside of me. And I may have
Right.
the money, but I'm
Right.
also at war me. And I
Yes.
and I can't
Yes.
afford to have that. I need to
I
have
agree.
peace
I
more
agree.
than I have a couple of extra zeros in the bank account. So those are some
Yeah.
very important takeaways.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that story. You and I have kind of similar, different, but I feel like sort of the the trigger, the thing that happened different, but overall similar, and what it did, the prompting of the self-evaluation. And that's where that curiosity came into play, because you were asking questions. Why did this happen to me? How,
Yes.
why, where, and where, what, how did this happen? Why did it happen? What was my role in this? And that's what I think is the big key thing here when we're talking about this, this whole thing about this story is we have these stories, right? And part of, I think, writing these books too, I think, and telling these stories is part of that healing in that journey, because I think it really allows us to take that, whatever that thing is, whatever that painful thing is that create something for us, right? You have two choices. Yeah, all of us have stuff that happens, right? I mean,
Mhm.
some people have worse stories, obviously. But I think we have a lot of these things that keep happening to us a lot of times too, because we have lessons we got to keep learning, and we're not picking up the lesson. We're not picking up what it is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I mean, like you're talking about this worth thing. And I I've been in those areas. I've been in those places where I didn't value and I wasn't charging well and I was running ragged. And at the time that I had my whole health thing, I was a mom of a 16, 12, and 8-year-old. I was a homeroom mom, field trip mom, PTA mom. I was running a business. We were doing karate, lacrosse, piano, destination, imagination. I mean, we were doing it all. And although I had a spouse in the house, I was doing most of that running
Mhm.
around
Yes.
on, and I found myself with a major nerve condition that came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden I'm kind of like where you are, where I had to go back and realize what's going on here, that there
Yeah.
were behaviors that were triggered by belief systems that I
Mhm.
was playing out every day, and they led to this chaos, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all of this I think is I don't know where I was going on with this, but my point to all of this we've talked about today, I feel like it's been so important, because I think part of this book writing is part of this healing process. And everybody has a way of going through their healing, but I think for those of us that have, that want to create impact and we have a story to tell, I think that is part of that process that we need to heal. And so it's why I do this podcast too. It's why you do your ministry. It's why I do a podcast. I tell people all the time, I'm like, this is where I crack up. I had somebody the other day wrote me, because I get pitched probably like you do every day. Somebody's got the thing that's going to make me a millionaire, but it's all about my pod. They tell me my videos. They tell me my SEO sucks. They tell me this, but this is my favorite. Besides the fact the ones I get in LinkedIn that say, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? That one cracks me up. This is my next one. I got one the other day that says, I was listening to some of your episodes and they all seem to not be related. And I'm like, tell me you know nothing about my podcast or about Jennifer without telling me you know nothing. Because if you know anything about me, you understand the premise of the entire show. It's all about healing, thriving, and teaching people to live their best lives. And the way we know to do that is we've got to spread good message. And that's what I do. I bring people in here to talk about them thriving. You are thriving. Everybody that comes on here is doing something that they enjoy doing. We're thriving. And that's the point of this entire show, but I crack up. It makes me laugh. I just had to go delete. I was laughing on it. So it just cracks me up. But thank you for sharing all that. And then for anybody who is maybe right now, other than picking up that phone, reaching out to him, being like, help me tell this story. What is one thing maybe a on the fence book writer could do right now? They want to get this story out. What could they do?
Well, just a person who is on the fence about writing a book. Number one, if you have a story that is bubbling up on the inside of you, you're not going to be able to rest comfortably, go to sleep, or do anything unless you get that story out. It's more than just a story. It's almost a calling. Because you have a mission, you have a purpose, and that purpose is to impact the lives of other people. So that story is there. I usually tell people this also, that the things that you've gone through, the painful experiences, they didn't happen just by coincidence or happenstance or for no reason at all. No, these things came together to develop within you an incredible story, an oyster that needs to be shared with the rest of the world. So you have a mandate to really share that story.
Yeah, an obligation.
I would share that information, get it out. And I will say that to go ahead and really connect with someone that can help you in that process, because you have an incredible story. So let's really take the next step. One of the key things is to start writing down, journaling your experiences, put all of that in writing. And then from there, we take the next step and begin to develop all of those key experiences and put it together into an incredible story, an incredible book that can bless the lives of other people. So that's a tip that I would leave with you right there, as far as a good starting point.
Yeah, I would say too, and I don't know about you, but like I'm also like record, like record some things if I have to, like, because I am like, sometimes I'm like, I'm telling you now with Chat GPT,
Oh yeah.
Tim, you better believe I'm over there telling Chat GPT, I'm talking to it and I'm telling, don't be stupid today. Tell me what I need to hear.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Pull out your cell phone and click the voice memo record.
That's
and
right.
just
You have a
record
good idea.
yourself.
If you can't write it down, get that recorder out. Because
Yeah.
you know what? I know you're probably like I am. Sometimes those ideas come in the most, odd spot. You'd be like, I used to laugh because we would take our dogs walk. I mean, we still walk, but the one dog, we got one that's old now. He's not walking anymore, but we'd go out and walk. And I'm not kidding you. I'd be out like 5 o'clock in the morning and I'd be like, I got an idea.
Yeah.
And I have nothing with me. And I'm like telling my husband as we're walking, I'm like, do not forget this. Do not help me. So I'm like singing on the way back. Like I'm making up acronyms and stuff on the way back so I can try to remember the idea, when I get home.
And I'll say this because a lot of people don't realize the best ideas actually develop when you're not trying to think of the idea. So when you're walking and your brain is relaxed, that's when the ideas come.
Yep.
So yeah, you want to keep a voice memo recorder or something handy for those moments.
That's good. I know I found when I was writing too, like if I tried to force it, I couldn't. If I just sat down and I'd be like, I'm gonna like, I feel like writing right now. Then I just write, like, but if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was trying to like force that,
Mhm.
it's like it doesn't, your brain's too task oriented
Yeah.
in that moment. And you're trying to make it, creative and you're like in that zone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm with you. Good stuff. All right. Well, yeah, this has been a great episode. This has been so much fun. I know you and I'm looking at the time. We got to go. You got things to do. I got things to do. We're going to sit here forever. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to follow you, they want to reach out, maybe they need help with ghostwriting, whatever, wherever they are right now, where do you want us to send them?
Okay, so you can reach out to me through my website at www.timothyflemmingjr, and Fleming is spelled with two M's. So that's FLEMMING Junior, JR.com, TimothyFlemmingJr.com. And for the book publishing, and I sent people to Timothy Flemming Jr. because I have some wonderful resources, many of which are free that people
Okay.
can take advantage of if you're trying to develop your story. You want to learn how to share your story in your book. I have a lot of resources right there. But for those that just want to jump out and publish their books, then you can go to the publishing website at tandjpublishers.com, T&J Publishers, and we have a lot of wonderful packages there to help those that are ready to publish that book.
They're like, they're already there. We don't have to get to we just get them over the edge. This is awesome. We'll make sure when we get the show notes out, we'll get the websites in there too, so they know where to find you and all that good stuff. So it's been
Awesome.
fun. Thank you for all the conversation. And like I said, we never know where these are going to go. I told you in the beginning there, I had some questions that we asked them, but we also got to just talk in the middle of this, and it's been great. And you and I feel like different worlds and things. We got some parallels, and so those always make for the best conversations when we can kind of share stories and have some, insights that come from that. So thank you for your time and wisdom and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it. Loved it. Awesome.
Awesome. All right. And of course, to our audience, we love you, appreciate you. We hope you found this episode both inspiring and informative. And if you did, you know what to do. All the things: comment, share, like, subscribe, so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content. Reach out to Tim. And if you need to write a book or need some help getting that thing, or you just need to push over the fence, give him a call or reach out to him. And of course, as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And guess what? Every start begins with a decision. You guys take care. Be safe. Be kind to one another. We will see you next time.